Hey hockey fans, welcome to Goal Line Hockey. And today we're going to take a look at the 2019 NHL Draft, the top 10 prospects right now in the Central Scouting rankings, and take a look at some of the guys that are going to be available, a little scouting report on them, as well as the positions and where they will likely fall in the draft. And if you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future. So to start us off with the number 1 overall draft pick, Jack Hughes. He's a center, he's a playmaker from the United States. Right now he's got 119 points in 81 games played. He sits at 5'10", 168 pounds. And he is considered to be very small and sometimes unnoticed at times due to his size. But he's very elusive, and he's an electrifying and dynamic player. This guy, whoever gets the luxury of having this guy fall into their laps with the number 1 overall draft pick, it seems like there's a little bit of a war between him and Kakko, but it does not seem nearly as competitive as in years past. This seems like this is more than likely Jack Hughes' locked up spot. The only issue that some teams may see in Jack Hughes is something we almost saw a couple of years ago with Nolan Patrick and Nico Hischier. Nolan Patrick a little bit injury prone, and Jack Hughes is a little bit in the same, not nearly to the same extent. So now moving on to the number 2 overall draft pick, another wonderful player, and this is still the guy that's possibly the closest to number 1 behind Jack Hughes, and that is Kakko. He's a right winger, can play a little bit of center, more of a two-way player than Jack Hughes, and he is from Finland. Now this season he has 22 points in 29 games played. He's a little bit bigger, more of a moderate-sized player at 6'2", and he weighs 190 pounds. Not only that, he's a quick-thinking player. He reads the game exceptionally well and can protect the puck well. And his high hockey IQ is sure to make hockey plays around the net, and he makes his players around him better. Kind of in the same regard as some of the big elite players like Patrick Laine we've seen recently, Kyle Connor, from some of the guys from Winnipeg, and many other players around the NHL. This guy is really a great hockey player. He will make players around him better. He's a great scoring guy. He's got a great shot. And anybody in the NHL, again, kind of the same as Jack Hughes, whoever gets to pick him is going to be a winner at the end of the day. So now, heading into number 3. So the top 3, you got Jack Hughes, Kakko, and at number 3, Vasily Podkolzin. He's a right winger. He's a playmaker sniper from Russia. So he's our first Russian on the list. He's got 8 points in 11 games played. It's a little bit different in the league he plays in. He sits at 6'1", 190 pounds. He's very strong on the puck, and he plays the hard way. So he's more of a grittier player. Almost reminds me a little bit of like a Ryan Hartman. Probably a little bit higher of a ceiling, obviously, than Ryan Hartman. But that kind of player, he can put the puck in the back of the net, and he gets into it in front of the net. He's a little bit bigger of a guy. He's not tremendously big at 6'1", but he uses every bit of his size to his advantage. This will be a snag of a pick. If you don't get 1 or 2, number 3 isn't looking too bad either. And now on to our first Canadian on this list. The 4th overall pick at the moment, Kirby Doc, a center. He's a playmaker sniper, as mentioned, from Canada. He has 50 points in 43 games played up in Canada, and he's the biggest guy so far on the list at 6'4", 198 pounds. He has a great combination of size, skill, and speed. So there's more of a power forward center. We don't see too many of these guys come around, but they're very valuable. And we've seen recently how certain teams have shied away from the bigger physical game, and how that really hasn't worked in the playoffs, and they get pushed around a little bit. So a guy like Kirby Doc would definitely be probably a great leader throughout his career. He seems like a guy that can stick his nose in and get a little dirty, get into a couple of fights, and any team could use a valuable player like Kirby Doc. So taking a look at the number 5 overall draft pick at this point right now is centerman Dylan Cozens. He is considered a sniper, and he is another Canadian, so the Canadians, 2 of the 5, end up being Canadian. He has 58 points in 45 games played, and he sits at 6'3", 185 pounds. This is a pretty big guy, kind of like Kirby Doc. Him and Dylan Cozens are going to be interesting how they match up, how teams see them, because they are fairly similar players. Just looking at his scouting report, he has a good scoring touch, and he's strong on the puck. So this could be interesting. This could be a draft day decision where maybe a team looks at more of a leadership in Kirby Doc, or do they value the more scoring, prolific point producer in a guy like Dylan Cozens? Either way, you probably can't go wrong, and we'll see what happens at the draft. So to continue the Canadian parade, with our first defenseman on this list at number 6 is Bowen Byram. Sits at 6'1", 192 pounds. He has elite skating ability, very much an offensive defenseman, great defensively, taking away passing lanes, and limits options. So this seems to me like a guy that, yeah, he could put the puck in the back of the net, but you don't have to worry about him getting back and being a very good defensive player as well. And that is something that teams are definitely going to very highly value in defensemen. A guy that can score, but can also do what he has to do in the defensive end. And that seems to be the guy in Bowen Byram. Like, he is the top defenseman right now in the draft rankings. And we'll see what happens. We've seen guys like this. If someone really needs a defenseman, maybe he'll move up into the top 4, maybe at most. I don't think he'd move up into the top 3. But depends on teams' needs. If they really value a defenseman like Bowen Byram, Bowen may be the first guy off the board for defensemen. Continuing at number 7 is left winger Matt Boldi. He's a sniper from the States. He has 39 points in 35 games played. Stands at 6'2", 187 pounds, and can score from anywhere. A great hockey smarts, and has a heavy wrist shot. That is something that teams are definitely going to look at in Matt Boldi. He's got a great shot. Of Matt Boldi could definitely be of value to a team. And now you start going into the top 7, 8 teams in the draft lottery. A guy like Matt Boldi, even if he doesn't become a top guy as a second line, third line center, he would definitely be of help to a team. Continuing this list, at number 8 is our second defenseman and our first European defenseman, Philip Roberge. He's a left-handed shot. He's an offensive defenseman, and 8 points in 31 games played. He is playing in Europe in a men's league, so that does show he can produce. Obviously not at the level of some of these other guys getting, like Jack Hughes getting 120 points. But that's also, he is a defenseman. So you can't give him everything for that. He stands at 6'3", 203 pounds, one of the bigger guys in the top 10. He's a great skater. Could be the most complete defenseman in this draft. So, yeah, they were saying Bowen Byram, he's a good two-way guy, maybe a little more offensive sprinkle. Maybe Philip Roberge is the better all-around defenseman for a team. And maybe we see Roberge go before a guy like Bowen Byram in the top 4, 5, maybe even 6. This is a spot where maybe Roberge could move up. Moving along, up to number 9 is Payton Krebs, a centerman. He's a two-way forward from Canada. He has 53 points in 44 games played. He's a little bit on the smaller side at 5'11" and 181 pounds. He has an accurate shot, and he's very dynamic. So this is another guy. If he can play in both ends of the rink, he might not have as much of a scoring touch as some of the top guys, but more of a defensive player. And that is what's gotten him into the top 10. And to cap off our list, at number 10 is Trevor Z Gross, a centerman, playmaker from the States. 49 points in 34 games played. He sits at 6 foot, 168 pounds. He's patient. His patience with the puck and on-ice vision is lethal. This is a guy that hopefully a team at 10 can maybe get a great hockey player, just like the rest of the guys. He may move up, he may move down, and once you start getting into the top 10, top 15, guys definitely move around, up and down, and some guys, Zegras is in the top 10 right now, but I'm sure there are guys at 11, 12, 13, 14 that all could be right up next to Zegras. So to wrap up this talk, looking at the top 10 for the 2019 NHL entry draft, the future seems bright in the NHL. Obviously, it's a quick look at the top 10 to June and see who got picked where. And I'm going to continue this a little bit. I'm actually going to take a look at the end of the season, who has what picks and things like that. And we'll kind of do a mock draft and see what the NHL landscape is for some of these guys, because certain teams are going to see, they put more value on certain positions. Obviously, we've seen teams like the Hurricanes. Their owner came out not too long ago saying that he will not have his GM draft a defenseman in the first round. I think that's a little bit silly if Rasmus Dahlin or one of those guys is sitting in your lap. The draft is coming up quickly, and it's approaching very fast, and everybody is excited to see what happens at the draft lottery during the first or second intermission of that playoff game, and it's going to be very interesting to see who will get the top pick. So we'll see what happens, and who knows? I mean, Colorado may be getting that first overall pick from Ottawa, and unfortunately, I think that is going to scare teams, as we saw at even the trade deadline, teams kind of being a little bit cautious with their first-round picks, leading into some things with RFAs, teams not wanting to give up first-round picks. It's just too risky, and the possibility even at 15, getting the first overall draft pick is just, the value there, it is immense, and teams may not be willing to give up that draft pick. Thank you for sticking around and watching us here at Goal Line Hockey. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you really liked it, hit the subscribe button for more content in the future. And for a post-game question, who do you think is going to get the top 3 overall draft picks this year? Who's going to win the lottery this year? Thank you guys for watching.